All right, I want to welcome everyone to this next Ask a Brain Doctor live Q&A session. I'm Paula Spencer Scott. I manage the content and the education, all the words and things that you read on Retain and Watch. And Dr. Richard Isaacson with us today is a preventive neurologist. He's the science lead behind Retain Your Brain and really just a leading figure in this whole world of preventive neurology and Alzheimer's disease care and prevention. And this Q&A session is exclusive to Retain Your Brain users. And if you've joined recently and would like to see some of the past Q&As that we've done, you can go to your Learn page. When you open up the app, you just go right to the word Learn, and you can type in Ask a Brain Doctor, and you'll see all the past sessions that we've done before. And we have received so many questions this time in advance from people who have registered. And you're also welcome to add questions to the chat as we do the talk today. And we'll try to answer as many as we can. And ready to get started?
I'm ready to go. Thank you so much. Looking forward to it, Paula. Great to have you. Great to have you back. And I'm excited because these are kind of my favorite people to talk to. Retain Your Brain users. For those of you who are unaware, we had this crazy idea 6, 7, 8 years ago now to try to democratize access to Alzheimer's prevention care. When I met Paula over a decade ago, 12, 15 years ago, the time flies. I met her, we talked, we got to know each other, and then our paths crossed again when at the Alzheimer's Prevention Clinic at Weill Cornell Medicine, New York Presbyterian. And when I was at Cornell, we had over a 4.5 year waiting list. And that's not okay. People should not be waiting 4.5 years to talk to someone about their brain health, to talk about brain health. And we tried to create Retain Your Brains, an NIH-funded study, amazing randomized controlled trial. We showed that Retain Your Brain actually works to reduce Alzheimer's risk, and that's amazing. Manage risk factors for Alzheimer's and improve brain health. Wow, that's actually a big deal. And that's kind of why I'm here. I'm here to talk to you, and I'm here to be here for you. And hopefully you get something out of this. Tell your friends, tell your family. And this resource is free. So we'd love to get the education and knowledge out there. So Paula, take it away.
Great. The resource is free, and it really is an added bonus to be able to talk one-on-one with you and get questions answered about anything that's in the software or other things people are wondering about. So I'm going to start with a really broad question, and then we're going to go into a bunch of specifics. So the first question was, what are the biggest gaps between the science of brain health and what's currently being delivered in everyday care?
Wow, who asked that question? You get an extra bonus point in your. Do we have a point system in Retain Health? We used to have a point tracker, a leaderboard. Whoever asked that question should get some bonus points. So, wow, we as a society and as a healthcare system in the United States is so broken. Just to be clear and transparent and honest, I hate to say it. Where doctors and the healthcare system are really good at treating people that have something bad happening, treating problems, making a diagnosis of a disease based on symptoms, and treating things when they happen. And that's where the emphasis has been. And I think the biggest gap that I see every day is there is not a focus on preventive health. And there is not, an incentive system for doctors to focus and be paid for preventive health. And, the people that I used to see at the Alzheimer's Prevention Clinic, just as an example, statistically, because we looked at it, when someone doesn't come in with a problem, with a memory loss problem or a complaint, and they're looking to prevent something down the road, there's no billing code that we can submit, and doctors don't get paid. And every time we submitted, things to insurance companies, we collected 28 cents on the dollar. 28% of the money that we billed to insurance companies, we collected, and we would have gone out of business in a few years if it wasn't for donors, philanthropists, grants, research grants that we got. But I think the biggest gap in our healthcare system is it's not incentivized for preventive healthcare. And, we live in a sick care system, not a healthcare system. And this isn't a political, or or whatever, thing. This is about education. And the reason I give this backstory is because I just want everyone to know that, you all here are invested in your brain health. You all joined Retain Your Brain. You're all spending your time, like you could be doing a lot of things right now. You're spending your time listening to a doctor talk, and Paula Spencer Scott, who's an expert. And you're here to make the time to learn. Other people out there just don't have this opportunity because our system isn't set up for it. So I guess the missed opportunity that we have is that doctors, you know, need to be supported in this journey, and there needs to be a collaboration between doctors and patients. So I can't blame the doctors, I can't blame the healthcare system fully, I can't blame people, but I think everyone out there, I think the thing that we should all do is talk to our doctors. Have a conversation with your doctor. Say, I learned something, or I saw this webinar, or I saw this thing, or I read this thing online, and I'm interested in brain health. I heard that cholesterol and blood pressure and blood sugar make a difference. What are my numbers? Can I see my lab results? Or, oh, I haven't had that tested. Maybe I should have that. I think as people at risk, we have to be empowered to be a citizen scientist, to learn, get educated, get informed, and then be proactive. Talk to your doctor, nurse practitioner, physician assistant, and say, hey, I want to be more proactive about my health. And I think that's the missing link. I think the other challenge here is that there are new, for example, blood tests that our research group is trying to develop what we call the cholesterol test for the brain. And Retain Your Brain users should stay tuned, because we're going to hopefully one day, get even more education, information, and resources out there for people that want to understand their brain risk factors better. And I'm really excited to talk about that at some point in the future. The brain blood tests that are out there are an amazing opportunity to understand where a person is in terms of their risk. And then if it's a test that we can then track over time, as someone that makes a behavior change, an exercise, a blood pressure, or this, that, and the other thing, does their risk come down using a blood test? I think that's another thing that everything's going to change in the coming months, and definitely the coming couple of years. So I think we should all pay attention to that, and just know that within a few months to a year, the field of brain health, Alzheimer's prevention, dementia prevention is going to change quite a bit. So stay abreast, keep learning, keep pushing yourself, keep adopting brain healthy habits, talk to your doctor, and feel empowered that you can make the healthcare system work better for you.
Great, great. That was a great overview. And it answers one of the questions that someone had, which is, what is your opinion of a blood test for Alzheimer's and who should get one? And then more specifically, someone asked, my amyloid, someone knows the answer about their blood, my amyloid is 4240, and my amyloid 4240 score is 15.1. Does your research or experience indicate that it can ever be improved? So sort of going hand in hand, if you want to just kind of briefly address, what do we know about blood tests now? Who should get them? Can they have meaningful impact on what we do?
Yeah. So the story around blood tests is complicated, and within Retain Your Brain, we're going to be launching a lot more content on this very soon. We've recorded it, we've scripted it, so stay tuned. Let's talk about what blood tests are used now and what they are best positioned for today. And then let's talk about how blood tests can be used very, very, very soon. So if someone has symptoms of cognitive decline, and if someone has a family history of Alzheimer's, and they want to understand if those symptoms of cognitive decline may be related to Alzheimer's disease, pathology, the bad stuff, the amyloid and tau plaques and tangles and proteins, you can do a blood test to see if that person, ready for this, may be at risk. I'm caveating this a lot. May be a screening test, an imperfect test. I'm not going to get into too detailed about technical terms like negative predictive value and positive predictive value, but I kind of need to get into that, because if you get a blood test and it's normal or it's negative, an amyloid blood test or a tau blood test, if it's normal, then it may actually be correct. It's more likely to be correct if a blood test, an amyloid or tau test is normal. It's more likely to be correct. However, there's a term in medicine called false positives. A false positive means you take a blood test or something test and it says, uh-oh, something's wrong. But then that blood test actually isn't accurate because of the test just isn't good enough, or there was an interference, the person had a virus or a bacteria, or they didn't sleep the right, or they ate something, or they took a vitamin and it messed up with the blood test. Testing for Alzheimer's, blood tests for Alzheimer's that are positive. Uh-oh, right? Not necessarily. Some of these tests are good. Good means 90% accurate. Good, that's terrible. That means 1 out of every 10 people that has a positive blood test for Alzheimer's is a false positive. And that's why I've been very outspoken and very conservative and very passionate, honestly, about being very cautious about these tests. And if someone out there has a positive Alzheimer's blood test, whatever that means, there's an amyloid test, a tau, whatever, be cautious because it may not be accurate. What if the blood test was drawn and it was mailed and it was in the summertime? It's Florida, it's always the summer here, and the ice melted. Happens all the time, right? FedEx delays, UPS, whatever. Well, guess what? Possibly a false positive, maybe a false negative, depending on the test. What if a person has an infection like COVID, just had COVID, or a virus, a flu virus, or something? Guess what? Viruses can cause false positives in Alzheimer's blood tests. Who out there is doing a viral swab? Remember those COVID swabs, right? Who out there, what doctor is doing a blood test for Alzheimer's and a viral swab? What doctor out there? I think we're just doing that because we know this, but the field doesn't know it yet because this is so new. All of this information is new, and that's why we do research. I'm a clinical researcher. So I'm going into a lot of detail here because there's so much nuance with these tests. So if a person has symptoms, please, 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 it's a screening test. If it's positive, it may not be positive for real. You need a follow-up test like an amyloid PET scan or a spinal tap to confirm it. When it comes to using blood tests to determine if a person is at risk for Alzheimer's before they have symptoms, totally different discussion. Our group, our research is really trying to create this, what we colloquially call the cholesterol test for the brain. I could speak for an hour on this. I could speak for 2 hours on this, but what I would say is the following. We are getting very, very, very close to being able to do a blood test to assess a person's risk, get a baseline before symptoms, and then we're going to tell people to how to maybe reduce their risk, protect their brain health, manage risk factors. And then we get another blood test to see did things go up or down or stay the same. So what I would say is stay tuned. We're going to have a lot of content, education, information through Retain Your Brain. And we are working very hard. Every single day I work on this, literally, creating a blood test panel, because it's not just about one test. Amyloid was the question. And I went off on a tangent that I think is really important because there's a lot of nuance here. I don't know what your amyloid blood test means because what assay was it? What company did it? Did the dry ice melt? Did you have a virus? Did you have so many different variables? The right way to do blood testing is really challenging. And I hope that we're going to have a solution for this soon, but we don't. So I don't know what to say about your amyloid blood test. To me, I think it's not sufficient to ever order just an amyloid blood test. I need to see the whole picture, an amyloid ratio like you had on a good machine from a quality company that's not cutting corners, that has a good assay where the ice doesn't melt, okay? Plus a p-tau, a tau is a different protein, p-tau 181 and p-tau 217. If someone has symptoms, p-tau 217 is a good screening test in the blood to get. And then you can do a ratio. Sorry, this is so complicated, but p-tau 217 divided by amyloid 42. Sorry, lots of terms here. That's a good screening test to figure out if a person may have symptoms related to Alzheimer's. But if a person is pre-symptomatic, a p-tau 217, a p-tau 181, and an amyloid ratio is, I would say, the bare minimum of what a person needs, plus 2 other tests. And this panel of tests in life, when you go to a doctor, do you just order a total cholesterol? No. We get the LDL, bad cholesterol, the HDL, the good cholesterol, triglycerides, right? With brain health, it's going to be the same thing. It is the same thing. And our clinical care system hasn't caught up to that yet.
Great. So early days, not a simple yes, no, take one test that people think about. Alzheimer's test doesn't exist yet. And the lots of nuance that you'll be talking more about. Okay, great. Now going to the very specific, someone says, I'm ApoE44, so that's the ApoE gene, and I'm told that I'm sensitive to pesticides. Can I get pest control treatments for my home?
Wow, I love these questions. Score 1, 2, and 3 for the Retain Your Brain users. This is the best first three questions I've had on a live Q&A. So let's talk about pesticides and let's talk about some of the confusion here. And I'll be honest, a decade ago, 20 years ago, if someone would have told me that pesticides causes Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, I would have said, whatever, blah, blah, I don't believe it. Show me the data. I'm a data-driven person. Well, I was wrong. I would say at least 12% of Parkinson's cases are probably directly attributable to pesticides. That's that's new. That's interesting. Didn't know that 10 or 20 years ago. And when it comes to Alzheimer's disease, it's complicated. People with one or more copies of the ApoE4 variant of the ApoE4 ApoE gene. So real quick, everyone has ApoE. They either have a 2, a 3, or a 4, and they get one of those from mom and dad. So you could be a 3-3, a 3-4, a 4-4, a 2-3, whatever. If you have one or more copies of a 4 from mom or dad, you're increased a little bit of risk. Your risk is a little higher. Doesn't mean you're definitively going to get Alzheimer's, but say you have one copy, okay, risk a little higher. If those people with a 4 are exposed to a certain pesticide called DDT, or the byproduct of that is DDE, DDT has a six-fold increase in Alzheimer's risk, ApoE4 plus pesticides. Whoa, right? Big headlines. But in the United States and Canada, depending, most people actually think everyone using Retain Your Brain should be in the United States because we have requirement to use the United States cell phone because of various FDA stuff that we did with our NIH trial. But in the United States, these pesticides have been out, not allowed, outlawed since 1977. So legacy contamination, the half-life of these pesticides is almost done. So what I would say is ApoE4, if you're having produce, fruits and vegetables grown in the United States or Canada, you don't really have to worry about that too much. If you're getting produce from Mexico or other countries, not to just call out Mexico, but like there's a lot of countries out there that haven't outlawed these. So then you're going to need to buy organic to be safer. Okay. And the fruits with the seeds on the outside, like strawberries, for example, higher likelihood to have more pesticides because that's where the stuff gets absorbed. So yes, I would say someone with one or more copies of the ApoE4 variant should watch where their produce is coming from. And if it's external to the United States or Canada, organic is better. Follow
And home
on. What is that?
and home pest control?
So home pest control, the reason why I'm saying this, that I started with that stuff is because that's where the data are, right? Home pesticides, oh boy. I'm back where I was with Parkinson's disease and Alzheimer's 10 or 20 years ago. I don't know. We don't know. I'm not sure. Are there some suggestive data out there that home pesticides, I mean, are we talking about spraying for mosquitoes? Are we talking about certain fertilizers? Are we talking about weed killers? Are we talking about, getting rid of mice and that sort of, whatever? There is so much complexity with this. And, what I would say is, okay, I don't know, less is more. And if you have an ApoE4, maybe you may be at higher risk. But yeah, I would say less is more. And I don't think we have definitive answers about home pesticides. I may come back in 6 months, a year, or 2 years, and I may change my answer, though.
Good. Okay. What is the latest science on artificial sweeteners, another complicated one, and brain health? And do I have to give up my beloved Diet Coke?
Oh boy. This is another question that's really changed over the last decade. And my close colleague, Dr. Christopher Ochner, he and I wrote a book together, The Alzheimer's Prevention and Treatment Diet. I believe it came out about a decade ago. And actually, it's his birthday today. So, Dr. Ochner, if you're listening, happy birthday, bud. Doctor and I, we had it out in a good spirited debate a decade ago because we didn't know about artificial sweeteners. And I want to say something about the difference between artificial sweeteners like sucralose, ACE K, sulfatime K, and oh gosh, there's sucralose, ACE K, saccharin. There's that whole thing, and then there's natural, non-nutritive sweeteners, natural like stevia or monk fruit extract. To me, I think the totality of evidence suggests that the unnatural, the artificial sweeteners are not good for brain health. I don't have a great correlation with Alzheimer's. I have correlations with increased risk of stroke, heart, cardiovascular disease, stuff like that. I'm not certain about Alzheimer's specifically. I would say with dementia, yes, there could be an increased risk. Stuff like stevia, monk fruit, I would say maybe less, but I don't like that stuff either. Why? Because whether it's an artificial sweetener or a natural sweetener, you are tricking your brain into something. You're like, oh, calorie. Oh no, wait. I'm tasting something. I'm getting nutrients, but I'm actually not. And it's tricking your brain, and it may lead to sweets, to cravings of sweets.
Mm.
And that's just a vicious cycle because if you crave sweets, then you're going to eat sweets, whether it's artificial sweeteners or non-nutritive sweeteners or whatever it is. So I'll give you an example. What's this? Is this Gatorade? No, it's a Gatorade bottle, but you can see the color. Have you ever seen that color of Gatorade?
I don't, I don't.
No, not really. This is not a red Gatorade. This is this much lemonade,
Mm.
this much red Gatorade. It is literally 1 ounce, about less. My goal is 5 to 7 grams of sugar per 16-ounce bottle. And that's what I do. I put an ounce of sweetened something so I can taste it, maybe 5 grams of sugar. I drink this 2 or 3 times a day in addition to water, and I'll have 15 grams of added sugar. I'm very active. I ran a 5K this morning. 15 grams of sugar rather than a normal bottle of Gatorade. Oh my goodness. 34 grams in one bottle. If I had 3 bottles of Gatorade, that's 100 grams of sugar. That is a big difference. And the difference between sweeteners and, the question was Diet Coke, is that bad? Everything in moderation, as my mom would say. Are these Celsius drinks bad, or Red Bull, or this or that? Less is more. I'd always take water or carbonated water, or like a hint. We drink hint in the house. I like hint because there's no sugar, there's nothing, no sweetener of any kind, and it just tastes a little bit like something. I believe that little tiny amounts of sugar from juices, this is like a little lemonade, a little bit of Gatorade, just so it has some taste, are okay. And less than 50 grams of added sugar a day is the goal, but the general goal, but we recommend for brain health less than 30 to 40 grams of added sugar a day, only if someone is active. Water is better, carbonated beverages are even better than that.
Right.
1 Diet Coke a week, 2 Diet Cokes a week, 3 Diet Cokes a week, everything in moderation. But why trick your brain? That's the way I think of things.
And we do have great routines within Retain that you've suggested helping people pare down from either a juice or a soda habit to have less, with suggestions like what you just did, which is great. Is treated depression a risk factor for Alzheimer's disease?
Wow. Oh boy, can I phone a friend? Um, let's see, Dr. Esposito. Let's see. Let me phone Dr. Esposito. I think that treating depression is a way to reduce risk of Alzheimer's. That's what I think. The data, I think, are a little less clear. But what I will say is that there are certain treatments for depression that have been shown to lead to less accumulation of amyloid protein. And amyloid protein is that sticky plaque, the pathologic protein that builds up in the brain of a person with Alzheimer's. And a paper came out about 2 Novembers ago, or maybe longer than that, that looked at different antidepressants in the SSRI category, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor category. SSRIs have been out for a long, long time. And the specific one that kind of worked the best to reduce amyloid or have less amyloid accumulation is escitalopram. Escitalopram, the brand name used to be Lexapro. That is now all generic, escitalopram. There are other drugs that of the SSRI category. You've heard of Zoloft and Celexa and Paxil and Prozac. I don't know that they're better or worse, but personally in my clinical practice and in the data would support, for example, we use lower dose Lexapro, escitalopram as a way to possibly reduce risk and slow decline. And I do believe that treating depression will help in that way. However, there's multiple different types of treatments for depression, and there's different drugs, different pathways, different categories. Also, not all treatments for depression are drugs, right? Let's talk balance, right? We talk about CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, talking to a psychologist, taking vacations. Like there's all sorts of things that a person can do to augment or maybe not need, obviate the need for drugs. But of course, if someone does have depression and is being treated by a physician or a psychiatrist, then, definitely recommend talk to our doctors about this. But treated depression, I believe, is a valid way to reduce risk of dementia and cognitive decline and Alzheimer's, all three. And the final thing I would say is depression is a risk factor for Alzheimer's, but there is some uncertainty whether truly depression is a true risk factor, or it may just be one of the earliest signs or symptoms of dementia. I take it as a risk factor that is treatable, but there are some people that think, and I think people with Alzheimer's, dementia, and mild cognitive impairment do have depressive symptoms. So sometimes it's hard to tease this out, but I do believe that treating depression is a valid risk reduction technique for Alzheimer's prevention and risk reduction.
What about social isolation? Is it a problem? And so I'm going to put this in quotes. Social isolation. Is it a problem if you really prefer and need a lot of time alone and you're not lonely?
I love these questions. Retain your brain users are my spirit animals. This is great. That was a great question. I love going. I have a music room. Like my whole life, I've wanted a music room, and I finally first time homeowner in my 40s, and I finally got my little music room, and it's dark and it's cold and it's quiet, and I like being alone in my music room. And honestly, I don't know that I have data to support this, but I can tell you that loneliness is the thing, the risk factor that's been studied. If a person does not have social connection and craves it and feels loneliness, that is the kind of the construct. Just like when it comes to like worry or rumination, right? Anxiety, maybe depression, yes. Worry or rumination, when someone worries about something, ruminates over and over and over, that's the thing that's tied to smaller brain volumes and accelerated cognitive decline. Loneliness, truly loneliness, is when someone craves connection and withdraws and also doesn't have social engagement. That's the risk factor that I'm aware of. But if someone likes to kind of go and hide in a dark room with or without music, with little lights on and like whatever, and just enjoy the peace and quiet. I don't know. Maybe I'm just saying this because that's kind of what I like to do a lot. Like last night, in fact, and multiple nights in the last couple of weeks. I think that's good because, whether you're, getting a break, some people go to the sauna, whether it's a hot Finnish sauna or infrared sauna, just to kind of take a break. They really like being alone. Some people like being in a sauna, whatever, or they like, whatever. I don't know exactly that I have data to support this, but I think giving your brain a break and enjoying time with yourself is something that is really restorative, and I think that should be supported.
So being alone does not equal loneliness as a condition. Yeah.
I would say that. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Is it good for me to play Mahjong even though I don't like the game? I didn't play games growing up and I don't like games. So we know games are important for brain health, but what if you just don't like games? Should you force yourself anyway for the cognitive stimulation that it provides?
Yeah. I don't know. The first thing I want to say is I've struggled with this because I've struggled with answering this question. I think, I've said a couple of times, if you do more Sudoku and you practice Sudoku and you engage with Sudoku, you're just going to get better at Sudoku. It doesn't have a spillover effect. I'm not of the ilk where someone should be forced to do something that they don't like, even though staying engaged, being cognitively engaged, um, and participating in cognitive activities is absolutely one of the critical things that moves the needle for reducing risk of cognitive decline in Alzheimer's. In fact, in our trial, in our NIH-funded Retain Your Brain study, cognitive activities was like one of the top three, I think, things that move the needle to reduce risk. In our study, was positive. We reduced risk when people that use the software, just like you all y'all are using the software. Within 6 months, we showed statistically significant improvements in Alzheimer's risk. The three main drivers were eating more fish, cognitive activities, and maybe exercise. I'm forgetting, but I should know this. I wouldn't force yourself to do anything. But if you're not doing anything, then that's a problem too. Learning a new language, learning a new how to play a musical instrument, for example, learning adult education classes, participating in things like this, using the Retain Your Brain software, go to the Learn page. There's a lot of stuff on there now. To me, that's important. Mahjong specifically, I don't think you should force yourself. And honestly, if your friends are going, maybe you just want to go and, I don't know, hang out and socialize, but don't have to play. So I'm not sure I have a perfect answer there, but enjoy the cognitive activities that you do, and do it in group settings is the best available evidence that I have.
It's like go to the book club for the hanging out with your friends, whether or not you read the book, although reading is also good cognitive activity.
Yeah.
What are some tips for finding supplements like omega-3s that haven't been sitting in a warehouse? So somebody, good quality.
Great question. So yesterday, so I take a handful of supplements, just a very few, and I always order from the company itself. I don't order supplements from Amazon. I think it's mostly important or most impactful for things like omega-3 fatty acids, because omega-3 fatty acids are brain healthy fats that go rancid or go bad in hot weather. I will say that even when you order it from the company, it's hard to understand what the supply chain exactly was. It's hot in Florida. Yesterday, my omega-3 bottle actually arrived at the doorstep. I live in a house, they come, whatever. But most of the time, the last few times, it's in my mailbox and it like bakes in there. It's like really hot. And who knows the temperature in the in the trucks. So I don't know that I have a perfect answer here, but I think to just think about the supply chain and think about how to best do it. One of the ways to do it is just order direct from the company. The other thing is, I have nothing to disclose, no relationships with supplement companies, vitamin companies, no pharma companies, nothing like that. When I've gone to Whole Foods in the past, some of the expiration dates are actually better, fresher at Whole Foods than when I order from the company. Now, it's not a big difference, like a month or two or three. But I don't know, maybe they buy in bulk, and I would expect or hope that Whole Foods has them in a better place, but I can't really be sure either. But yeah, I think this is hard. There are some supplement companies that only have a supply chain through that keep it cold. I don't use those because those are just just expensive and hard to get. I have, again, nothing to disclose. I use Nordic Naturals. That's the brand I use. But I'm not sure of a great perfect way. But the way to track and objectively know whether or not the supplements you are taking are working is to track the blood. And for example, there's a blood test, and no relationships to any companies that sell fish oil blood tests, but the company is called OmegaQuant, OmegaQuant.com. The founder of this company is like a genius, and he's an amazing guy. Very smart, very reliable, like great science. Anyone out there can spend $50 or $60 and order an OmegaQuant blood test. Check it with your finger at home. You mail in the card. A few weeks later, you get the results back. And you can see, are the omega-3s that you're taking, or the fatty fish that you're eating. Remember, you don't need to always take omega-3s. Lake trout, mackerel, herring, albacore tuna, wild salmon, sardines, super high in brain healthy omega-3 fatty acids, DHA and EPA. If your blood levels look good, then your supply chain is working. Like, that's one way to think about it, and your supplements are okay. You know, I take vitamin D, I take magnesium. Magnesium seems pretty stable. Vitamin D, it is a, fat soluble vitamin, but I think it seems pretty stable. I just have my vitamin D checked, annually or whatever. My vitamin D is okay between sunlight and a little dose. So I think, um, you know, uh, being able to track your blood markers is key. And again, we're all retain your brain users here, including myself, because I'm still getting reminders and getting prodded to stop drinking coffee afternoon because it's a problem that I have. And here you go, I'm doing better, replacing my coffee in the afternoon with water, very, very, very watered down Gatorade. But the take home point, I guess, is you know Retain Your Brain is going to be launching a lot of really new content about how to track these specific things in the blood very soon. So stay tuned. I track it myself. Our research participants track it. Everyone out there should be able to track this stuff in a cost-effective way that is valid, that is accurate, and that reports back to you in a fair and balanced way. And the team here at Retain Your Brain is going to be providing a lot more education on that in the coming weeks and months. So please stay tuned on that.
Related to that, someone says that they're taking 2 grams of DHA per day
Mhm.
and raised my LDL cholesterol by 30 points. Should I take more EPA instead?
Wow.
So taking omega-3 fatty acids, cholesterol changes. Is that common?
Um, okay, so not a political statement, but believe but verified. President Ronald Reagan said that a couple decades ago. Um, LDL increasing from 2 grams of well, number one, I want to see the bottle. I want to understand the brand. You said 2 grams of you said DHA,
DHA. They
two
just
grams
specified DHA.
2 grams of DHA. That's a lot of DHA. But there has to be some other stuff in there because
Hmm.
like Nordic Naturals makes DHA extra, and you need like 4 grams, but there's EPA in there. I really need to know what brand, what dose. Like I want to see the back of the bottle. Something is funny there. I don't generally see LDL an LDL change of 30 points. I believe but verify. So that's the first thing I would say. I think in capsules, there's lots of different oils that can be in there. MCT oil, medium chain triglycerides. Like for people that have known me for like 15 years, like Paula, I'm pro MCTs, medium chain triglycerides, which is a type of fat that in certain people without an ApoE4 variant, MCTs like ketone bodies, ketones can be beneficial, I think, on brain health and be protective. I really believe that, but not necessarily if you're ApoE4 positive, especially the dose, and if it's not the right combination of MCT. So I'm giving this example because in a fish oil capsule, there may be other oils to make it, to fill up the capsule. And in the wrong person, MCT oil, medium chain triglyceride, C8, C10, sorry, that's technical, can increase. Coconut oil is like a good example of this. In the wrong person, someone that eats too much coconut oil is going to spike their cholesterol. To me, also, LDL is not sufficient to track in a situation like this. I want to see the whole panel. Again, I'm going to sound like a broken record,
Yeah.
right? Total cholesterol, HDL, LDL, triglycerides, ApoB, ApoB. I'm going to have different targets of what is normal versus optimal, depending on if a person's male or female, depending on an age, depending if they have a family history of cardiovascular disease, and it's something else called an LP little a test. I wish I could give you a better explanation, but to me, I feel like you need that person, again, talk to your doctor. I'm not your doctor, but that test needs to be repeated, and we need to truly understand what's going in, what's going out, and was the test correct or not. I'm not saying it's not possible, but I haven't really seen that. And I'm going to sound like a broken record, but one of these days, soon enough, I hope Retain Your Brain is going to have a ton of more educational content and resources and ways for people out there to track these things in real time. Um, and I hope that day comes soon.
Do you recommend annual cognitive testing for a person in their 60s whose mother had Alzheimer's?
Um, That's a good question. Maybe. I think in a perfect world and in an ideal world, I would love annual cognitive testing. Whether that cognitive testing comes, from a quick screening test that a doctor can give, like a 5-10 minute screening test. Sometimes it's hard to find a doctor to give that screening test. At Retain Your Brain, we do have cognitive activities that can be used to get a snapshot of a person's cognitive health. And then potentially track it over time. Not a perfect diagnostic test because it's not a doctor or a neuropsychologist doing testing, but it's a good snapshot. Our team is actually literally at this very moment, like at 1 o'clock today, we talked about integrating more cognitive assessments through Retain Your Brain. If by the way, if you're listening to this and you have ideas or suggestions, or you want new features, or you want something in Retain Your Brain to work better for you, we're here. We're listening. I'm listening. Send us an email. We're going to send a little link in the chat at some point, getting a survey to get feedback about this Q&A session about, if you have new features, new whatever. I hope within the next several months, 6 months, we're going to have more ways to do cognitive tracking within the Retain Your Brain software. That's a goal of ours. But if I had to just be pinned down and say, should someone get annual cognitive assessments? Yeah, I would love that. It's just hard to get that, and you need to talk to your doctor. The mini mental status exam test, or the MOCA test, a 30-point test that I think are decent. But if someone has symptoms, they're not really that great. I believe in our work at the Alzheimer's Prevention Clinic and our research. We actually validated what we call the modified Alzheimer's Prevention Cognitive Composite, which was a 45-minute, mostly remote, meaning online, Zoom or just automated, plus about a 10 to 15-minute. Unfortunately, that's hard to do because an examiner has to, talk to the person. But yeah, I think if resources were limitless, I would say everyone could do it. But I don't think an annual cognitive assessment alone is sufficient. I think a cognitive assessment, annual blood tests, and an annual tracking of what a person's risk factors are would be the trifecta, right? So Retain Your Brain. Everyone here joined, did a risk assessment, got a risk, habit optimization score, right? Brain health habit optimization score. Feed in the cognitive measures, feed in some blood biomarkers, and that's really, I would say, the comprehensive, holistic way to manage this and to personalize an intervention. That's what we do in the clinic, and I hope we can do this one day even more precisely. But what is the right cognitive test to take? That's tricky. Any screening test is better than no screening test. But if someone is really smart, or if someone is like, not having symptoms, you could do the same test every year for 5 years, get a 30 out of 30. It would be normal, but there could still be stuff going on because the test wasn't hard enough, or the person got so used to taking the test, they remembered the answers. This is the same test every year. So that's why we're developing, and we already have a few, through our phone, through Retain Your Brain software, and we're going to have more, I hope, in Q1 2026, a way to track cognitive performance over time, but not make a diagnosis per se.
Getting a variety of data points to inform how you're doing, what are your potential risks, where do you stack up compared to other people your age. We've gotten a number of questions along these lines, and one just came in from the live chat, which people can add in the Q&A, about head injuries. So a 66-year-old has had a severe head injury at 19 and is worried now, works with dementia patients and sees it up front. So is very, very worried about that. Very conscious of keeping his brain active, but other things generally he should be doing, thinking about. We know head injuries are a risk factor, but if you do all these other things you're talking about, does that have you covered, or is there more that you would address?
Sure. Well, great question. And I'm sorry, head injuries are tough. And head injuries at various ages can portend different, I guess what I would say, outcomes and challenges. Um, you know, Depending on how bad the head injury was, is something that is really important. If a person lost consciousness or was hospitalized, that is, kind of one degree of issue, and that may or may not portend a problem later. if a person had a head injury in their teens or early 20s or whatever it is, and they didn't have any uh, consequences from it in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond, they didn't have any residual symptoms, I would say it's most likely that that head injury is not going to, you know, significantly, drastically, or even a little bit increase their risk of dementia. So I think one head injury, even if it's serious, doesn't really bother me that much. Now, repeated head injury, loss of consciousness, a lot of football players, a lot of whatever, definitely can have an impact. There's something called dementia pugilistica. And this is something where someone like, for example, boxers, they have boxers and multiple head traumas and they get dementia. I've seen many more than one retired football players, sports people, a soccer player, have repeated head trauma causing a worry. But if someone had a single episode, I'm less worried about it. I think the other thing that I've really tried to put some attention to, and I don't have a full answer yet, is do different people with different genes have higher risk of cognitive decline and dementia if they had a head injury? And I'm very intrigued by this because I swear I've seen people that have had so many head injuries and like they're fine. And then other people have had 2 or 3 head injuries, not usually just one, and they're not as fine and they're at higher risk. So to me, I think there has to be a genetic component. And whether it's, and I don't know this, but maybe people with 2 copies of the APOE4 variant, only 1% of the population has that. Doesn't mean you're going to get Alzheimer's, but maybe that person is at higher risk if they had head trauma. And I'm just saying, hypothetically, I'm not sure. But these are the confusing questions that I don't think we fully have answers yet to in science. But one head injury in the teens, less concerned about that.
Okay. What is the role of microplastics in dementia? Do we know that? Should we not be, or can you put it in practical terms? Should we not be putting Tupperware in a microwave, or is it in everything we're eating anyway? Very broad, but any takeaways that are useful?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to this question. Um, I don't know. I I mean, if you would have asked me 20 years ago about pesticides, what would I have said? Right?
Yeah.
But right now, I mean, look at me. I'm drinking water out of a Gatorade bottle, right? Um, Everything in moderation. And yes, I have tried to minimize microplastics in my life. When I'm putting something in the microwave, I do, microwaves are like, you're heating something up, and whether there's a wrapper on it with wax paper or in a plastic container, like one of the things that I've done personally, not through any like direct evidence that I'm aware of, but I just put, when I heat stuff up, I put it on a ceramic plate or in glass, or in a glass, whatever. That's
Yeah.
what I do. There's a lot of aluminum bottles now. The water bottles you see all over the place. I don't know that I use those as much. I still, unfortunately, or better or for worse, do use a lot of plastic bottles. I am not really sure about this, but I think it's something to watch, and less exposure is better.
Okay. I'm going to follow that one up with a softball for you. I hear blueberries are good, but you have to eat 2 cups a day. Is that right?
Uh, well, based on the 2012 Nurses Health Study, 2 cups, 2 to 3 times a week, half a cup of blueberries or strawberries have enough antioxidants, brain healthy antioxidants called anthocyanins, to delay cognitive decline by 2 years, which is awesome. So you don't need to have blueberries or strawberries or these antioxidants every day because they have a half-life, meaning they stick around in the blood in the body for a few days after you eat it. So a few times a week is what we recommend. If you're going to eat it every day, that's okay too, especially if you're going to be substituting that for ice cream or what other sweets. It's Halloween coming up, so have some blueberries and strawberries instead of Halloween candy. That's a great substitute, great substitute. But yes, brain healthy berries are among the most healthiest thing you can do for your brain.
Do you have to do cardio exercise? And someone else asks, do certain types of exercise help more than others in preventing Alzheimer's?
Exercise is, the most powerful thing a person can do to improve their chances of maintaining healthy cognition as we age. Um, different types of exercise are needed for different people. In brief, and there's a lot of this, education on the Learn page and, different routines and retain your brain. But the key here is what's that saying? Different strokes for different folks, right? If someone is trying to lose body fat, then we need to do exercise that aims to reduce body fat. I used to do a lot of Peloton during the pandemic, right? I was actually a former health and science medical advisor to Peloton. I was unpaid. They gave me a bike, but I was unpaid, so I have nothing to disclose there. But I got a bike. I used to ride Peloton. I got fitter. I got stronger. My legs got strong. My heart got strong, and my resting pulse went from like 52 to 48, which I thought was great because I was exercising more. But I didn't lose body fat. I still had a little bit of a belly because when I was on Peloton, I was like really doing zone 4 and 5, meaning the high intensity interval training, where I'm going up the hills and then recover and go and recover, and 45 minutes of that made my heart strong, made my legs strong, but it didn't lead me to lose body fat. Made me more cardiovascularly fit. If you want to lose body fat, you need to have lower intensity cardiovascular exercise. I've said this before, but as your belly size gets larger, your memory center in the brain gets smaller. That's body fat. That's belly fat. To lose fat, I recommend fast walking, lower intensity, steady state called zone 2 cardio, 60 to 65% of a person's maximum heart rate. So if the person's maximum heart rate is, I don't know, see, 50-year-old person, let's say it's 165, 60% of that is, I don't know, 120 something. That's where the person should be at 118 to 120 beats a minute for 45 to 60 minutes. If your doctor says, okay, doing this in the morning while fasted or after a coffee is even maybe a better way to jumpstart it, because if you do 45 to 60 minutes, you're going to burn the sugar that's in your blood. You're going to burn the body fat, and then it'll, get your metabolism going even more during the day. Even after eating lunch, for example, going for a short, brisk walk, even a slow walk or fast walk, brisk walk, whatever. Don't want to give you indigestion, but that's a great way to also kind of like, burn calories and basically make your body work better for you in terms of the nutrients that you take. Finally, muscle strengthening is critical. Men and women just need to do strength training. Absolutely. The bigger your muscles, the higher your metabolic rate. The higher your metabolic rate is, the more calories you burn, and you need to just do all of this. So you can't just do one. During the pandemic, the only thing I did was Peloton. Yes, my resting pulse was lower. My belly was the same, and my muscles, I feel like, lost mass because I was expending so many calories and not eating enough. So if you're trying to gain muscle, you need to have adequate amounts of protein and carbohydrates.
And we do in Retain have routines to help people develop all of those different kinds of habits, even, beginning walking, because it seems like so much, but you can really work up to all of these things. And I went through Dr. Isaacson's Alzheimer's prevention program when it first opened because I have a family history myself. And this was my biggest takeaway. I went from being someone who I just didn't exercise, and learned how to incorporate all of these things into everyday life. And it's great. And when you're doing all these different things, then you don't get bored with one thing either. And it actually became sort of easier instead of only like having to ride the Peloton or only, doing walking, having a mix of things across a week. It's not only good for you, but it kind of, I don't know, to me, made it more fun. So
Yep.
a little plug there for that.
And I know you exercise because well, anytime we talk, you're either out of breath or I call you in the morning or you have your little gym, and you're on it. You are following the plan. I am not worried about your brain health.
It's all about having a routine.
A routine. Yeah.
So here's a question that came in. We talked a little bit about social isolation before, but if you are widowed, are you more likely to have Alzheimer's? Is that a risk factor?
Oh, yes. Widowhood is a risk factor for Alzheimer's disease. And, when we talk about sex specific, biological sex specific risk factors for dementia, we have to include not just hormone changes. And I saw one of the questions in the chat that we can try to get to. I'm running out of time, but we'll try to make as much time for everything as possible. But hormone replacement therapy during the perimenopause transition, estrogen, that can help. That's a specific risk factor for women. widowhood absolutely is a risk factor, and it's an individual risk factor. And widowhood versus widowerhood, is that the right term? I'm not sure. Have different response, different outcomes with brain health. So yes, Sandy Lamont, who's a reporter for CNN, did a really great review on a study that came out. If you Google Sandy, Sandee, Lamotte, widowhood, dementia, Alzheimer's, whatever, it's a really great summary of this. But in some, yes, and um, you know, whether that is in part due to depression, social isolation, life changes that it's hard to tease out the individual components. I can tell you, my father passed away decades ago. My mom did not do well afterward is an understatement. And, I think that wasn't good for her brain health. And when my mom's brain health started to change, I would say that that could absolutely have been a risk
Yeah.
factor, whether it's because of the traumatic nature of a sudden death, or whether it's because of the loneliness, or whether it's because of the stress financially of, having to now have to, figure out a way around not having regular income in the house. Like, my mom had a tough time. So, I'm giving you a personal thing, but like everyone's personal thing is going to be a little different. So I think widowhood is an absolutely critical risk factor that can be intervened on. It's not fully modifiable before it happens, but it's, after it happens, I think there are definitely things people can do to make sure a woman's brain health, or men in terms of widowerhood, is supported over time.
Great. We do have time for maybe one more, which someone did in the live Q&A ask how impactful estrogen is on brain health. 61 on HRT, but it's only resulting in estrogen levels between 30 and 40. Doctors tried many different ways to deliver the estrogen. Big question about HRT generally, but what do you say about that?
Yes, great question. So this is a critical question. It's a great question to end on. I think this is the last one. Before I conclude on this question, which is again is critical, if everyone could take a quick look at the chat, I just put in a short survey. This has been an amazing event. I just want to say that because of the amount of people that started at the beginning compared to the amount of people that ended, I think 4 people have left. That is insane. Like, this is an hour. Y'all have been here for an hour. Like, people don't have the attention span for like 30 seconds on social media, right? Of course, one person just left, so I guess they don't like me rambling. But we've only had 5 people leave in an hour, and that is, I've never seen anything like that. They're back. Maybe they had a reception problem. 4 people leave in an hour. So just want to say thank you, everybody, for being here, sticking around. Spread the message far and wide. If you know someone that could benefit from our free Retain Your Brain software, please share it around, tell your friends, forward the emails, whatever it is. But please, if you can, just spend 2 minutes. Please fill out this short survey in the chat. Help us improve not only the Q&As, but also Retain Your Brain. If you have any suggestions, you can email us, contact us, please. We're here. We're listening. If you're sending us information, we are reviewing it every week. We have a team of, we're a small but mighty team, 20, 30 people that are busting their, whatever's every day to try to make this content ready for you and impactful for you. So anyway, please fill out the survey. It'll only take 2 minutes. So the final question, hormone replacement therapy. I got off the phone a few hours ago with a doctor in Atlanta. She works at Emory. And we have a mutual patient, a woman who she's 57, going to be 58 years old. And the primary care doctor called me because she really, wanted my help on, is it too late to start hormone replacement therapy in a 58-year-old woman? And this is exactly, very similar to the question that came in, 61-year-old woman, hormone replacement therapy is resulting in estrogen levels between 30 and 40. Doctor has tried multiple delivery. And again, I'm not your doctor. I'm not giving clinical advice, but literally this question came up today. And what I told the doctor was, I wish I had the right answer here. And what the doctor told me was, I wish I did too. Let's work on this together and figure it out. And that's an amazing thing because I've been talking to GYNs and calling GYNs for a long time. And 10, 15 years ago, they didn't call me back because wasn't normal for a neurologist to be calling a GYN doctor about hormone replacement therapy. And now those conversations are happening. So what I'll try to do is give you just a snapshot of what we discussed today. I don't know what the floor level is of estrogen that should be in the blood to be protective on brain health. The woman that we talked about today was 11. It was 11.8. Remember this. 11.8, I think, is too low. Is 50 the right level? Maybe. I think 50 is a good sweet spot, I'm guessing. On the phone call I said today, I don't know. It's interesting that this question just came in. Maybe someone was bugging my phones, but is the lower bound 35 to 40? I said maybe. Is the upper bound 75 to 80? Maybe. I think that there's some range between 35 and 80 of estrogen level in the blood, depending on the lab, because different labs have different assays, and this is a whole thing. And again, Retain Your Brain, I hope we'll be able to provide more education and resources about hormone testing in the coming months. So please stay tuned on that. But when it comes to a floor level, I have to just say I don't know. 30 to 40, again, not your doctor talking in generalities, but 30 to 40 is okay. Is 50 better? Maybe, but I don't really know. And I think every person is different. And, I think it's okay to be a little on the lower side rather than the higher side. I don't think you get that much extra benefit, but I do think that just treating rather than not treating, balancing risk factors, having, honest, open conversations with your doctor. And I think estrogen replacement therapy is something that's critical. We don't know the right exact dose. Some women are on 0.0375 and actually have a bump. Most women don't have much of a change. Some women do. Some women are on 0.05 and it's like perfect. And that's like the sweet spot for them. Some women need a little bit more. Whether or not a woman takes progesterone, micronized progesterone, 50, 100 milligrams every day, that can help with sleep. That can help with whatever. That's for the endometrial lining. May help with brain health, not sure. For us, in our clinic and in our population, we do look at estrogen levels, but we also go on symptoms. So my question is symptomatic? Are there perimenopausal symptoms? Women should not have to suffer with perimenopausal symptoms. I'm going to say that one more time. Women should not have to suffer with perimenopausal symptoms. It's not just like go change the temperature in your room or get a chilling pad for your bed, or it's like, your night sweats, brain fog, vaginal dryness. Like, no, women should not have to suffer. And there's, vaginal estrogen. There's creams. There's patches. There's a lot that we need to do, and we need to have open and honest conversations. And there may be optimization of levels that may more relate to symptoms. So if someone's level is 40, but they have no symptoms, maybe that's one answer. But if someone level is 30 and they have symptoms, well, then that's a different answer. And maybe they need to be treated to get a higher level. I don't know that I have the perfect answer here, but that's the way I think about it. And what this doctor who I spoke to literally today about this exact question was, well, my endocrine colleagues, this is what she said to me, my endocrine colleagues shoot for a level of 70 because in their research, the women's metabolic health was better when we shot for 70 with a range of 50 to 70. So I don't know how that changes anything, but she was just telling me that her endocrine colleagues feel like they have an answer. But from a brain health perspective, I don't think I have an answer. But I am happy to see women in their later 50s and early 60s or even beyond still be on estrogen and hormone replacement therapy, because in our research and the studies that we published at Weill Cornell Medicine through the Women's Brain Initiative, women that had longer exposure to estrogen hormone replacement therapy had larger brain volumes and less amyloid accumulation. And this is especially true in women with one or more copies of the ApoE4 genetic variant. So again, if it's complicated, but if an ApoE4 negative woman, if their level is 35 of estrogen, I don't know, I'm not going to really chase that. That sounds okay, especially if they don't have symptoms. if someone has if a woman has 2 copies of the APOE4 variant and they're on the lower level and they have symptoms, well, then that's a different discussion. So the take home point here is these decisions, these care decisions have to be personalized and, talk to your doctors.
Thank you. That was worth the bonus overtime to get that answer. Lots of nuance, but it's really important. I want to remind everyone that if you would like to review this whole Q&A session, you can go to your open up your app and go to the Learn page, and it'll take maybe a day or two for it to get uploaded. But this session and all the others are there. If you want a friend to have seen this, invite them to join at retainyourbrain.com, and then once they create an account just like you did, they can access all the information in the Learn page and participate in future Q&As as well.
Love it. And again, thanks everyone. For the rest of the people here, and now we've had 7 people leave. Probably 2 men left, but
You're men.
yeah, the 2 men that were here left. No, there's a lot more men. I just want to say thank you, everyone. We are aiming that Retain Your Brain hits, millions of people. Like I'm not gonna stop until millions of people get access to this software. And if you have feedback on how to make this software better, if you have a friend or a colleague or a loved one, if everyone here shared this with 5 of their closest family and friends, that's even better. That's more impact. That's helping more people. And then every one of those 5 people shares it with another 5 people. We're a small mom and pop operation, grant funded. We can't spend millions of dollars on advertising. We don't have stuff like that. So you all are our best advertisements. So please, let's spread the word of brain health. And thank you so much for your time.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Isaacson. Bye-bye.